Without any further ado, here's the man that changed the music for all of us, the great one himself, Mr. Les Paul.
When you just get mixed up and there's too much going on, then it's time to pick up your guitar, whether it's in the kitchen or just someplace where you can just play your guitar and clear your head.
Les Paul's remarkable career in music has spanned more than 80 years. It began in 1928 as a 13-year-old guitar player in a traveling cowboy band and continued straight through the 20th century. When we caught up with him in 2008, the 93-year-old was performing every Monday night in a small jazz club in Manhattan.
I just love to play. I like playing in a little joint where nobody's critical and we have a lot of fun. Lou and I have been together, 26 years?
Yes.
And how old are you?
70.
And still playing?
Still playing, baby.
In the 1930s, Paul began experimenting with guitar amplification. By 1941, he built what was probably the very first solid-body electric guitar, altering the course of popular music.
And my whole life was focused on making all the different sounds out of this guitar.
With his electric guitar and his wife's vocals, Paul mastered the use of overdubbing and multi-track recording to produce a string of hits in the 1950s. He retired from performing in the late 1960s, but came back to win Grammys in 1975 and 2005. But it is the Les Paul Gibson guitar that has influenced countless musicians, including Led Zeppelin's Jimmy Page, Slash of Guns N' Roses, and the Beatles.
I asked Paul McCartney, I says, did I influence the Beatles? He says, you made the Beatles the Beatles. He said, if it wasn't for you, there wouldn't be any.
Lester William Pulfus, otherwise known as Les Paul, was born in 1915 in Waukesha, Wisconsin.
When we got a radio, the things that impressed me the most would be country music.
Les began playing harmonica and guitar at local establishments when he was 13. One night he heard about a traveling cowboy band performing at a dance hall just outside of town. Underage, Les slipped into the hall through a bathroom window and was amazed by what he heard.
And here's this cowboy band, and I'll be darned if the guitar player wasn't sitting there playing all over that instrument. And he was playing things that just shocked me. And I got to talking to him afterwards, and he introduced me to the boss. And then the most interesting thing happened. He says, well, do you play the guitar? I said, I'll play the harmonica and the guitar, and I sing. And he says, well, would you get up and do something? They put me on a table. And I stood on the table and I sang for the people in this dance hall. And of course, a few hours later, the boss came to me and offered me a job.
With his mother's consent, Les quit school, joined the band, and started earning $10 a week playing guitar for Rube Tronson's Texas Cowboys. And then one fateful night, he was playing at a local barbecue stand when a passerby left him a note.
And he says, hey, Red, your guitar is not loud enough. And there I thought, how can I make my guitar louder?
He took the magnet and coils out of a telephone receiver, put them under a guitar string attached to a piece of railroad iron he'd found, and connected it to his mother's radio. Then he plucked the string.
And so I ran to my mother and I says, I've found it. I found the most beautiful sound I've ever heard. And my mother says, the day you see a cowboy on a horse playing a piece of railroad track. So I says, Mom, I got the message. And so I went to work on wood and shaping it like a woman, like a girl, okay? And to get that shape and to get that sweet sound. And finally I got it. And this took years and years and years of continued working on it. Then I took it to the manufacturers. And they kept turning it down, saying that this is a novelty.
By 1952, Paul convinced Gibson Guitars to manufacture his invention. The Les Paul model has sold steadily ever since, accounting for half the company's total sales. It is made of a thick layer of maple over a mahogany body with Les Paul's patent pickups. The guitar is prized for its clarity and sustained tone.
You're changing from an apologetic instrument that can hardly be heard into a giant where you could be the leader of the band. Where you could be far superior to, you got a volume control, you could just turn out somewhere got an up. And now you can alter that sound and you can make it as you hear with rock and roll and wherever you hear, with everybody who plays a guitar, whether it's Eric Clapton, it doesn't matter. They all took those ideas and those tools to work with and make the music what it is today.
Hello everyone. This is Les Paul speaking, and with me I have my wife Mary.
Hi.
And my guitar.
By 1943, Les Paul's musical career had taken off. He formed the Les Paul Trio and toured with the stars of the day, including the Andrews Sisters and Nat King Cole. In 1946, he recorded a hit record with Bing Crosby called It's Been a Long, Long Time.
Kiss me once, then kiss me twice, then kiss me once again. It's been a long, long time.
And Bing Crosby would get up there, one take. Kiss me once, kiss me twice. And when I did that with Bing, we started out right at the very beginning. And he says, do you think we're a little busy? And so that's telling me, can you play that for a little more hard and less of an exhibitionist? What I learned by him saying, Les, don't you think we're a little busy? Great line.
Pretty much it single-handedly invented multi-track recording. And what is that, and how did it change music?
Multi-track recording came about because my mother came to visit me in Chicago. And my mother says, driving down, I heard you on the radio. And she says, to my surprise, it wasn't you. And she says, the fellow is copying you. And, well, I says, Mother, I can't do much about that. Well, she said, you ought to do something. And so immediately, I'm going home to my studio in the garage. And I says, I'm going to make music that my mother can tell that it's me. Within 2 years, I had a sound and I had a whole way of playing, creating, that was entirely different than anybody else.
Paul electronically altered his sound through microphone positioning and reverberation. He made elaborate multi-layered recordings using 2 acetate disc machines, which demanded that each layer of music be recorded in a single take. One innovative technique was to record his guitar playing at half speed and replay it at normal speed, thereby creating the illusion of superhuman agility.
When my mother heard that, she says, "My goodness."
By the early 1950s, Les built the first 8-track multi-track recorder with magnetic tape, allowing each track to be recorded and altered separately, without affecting the others. The machine ushered in the modern era of studio recording and catapulted Les and his wife, singer Mary Ford, into household names.
Hello.
Hello.
The high voice, that was Mary Ford, and the one just slightly lower than that, that's me, Les Paul.
They would go on to sell millions of records, making smash hits like Mockingbird Hill, Vaya con Dios, and How High the Moon, which was produced in a house in Queens, New York with Paul's multi-track recorder.
Somewhere there's music, I'll paint the tune. Somewhere there's heaven, how high the moon.
How High the Moon, #1. Well, who would ever dream that you're going to do that in a basement in Jackson Heights? And it's so big that you get letters from Frank Capra and Howard Hawks and everybody that you can think of. Big names, little names, everybody.
Until you will still my heart, how high the moon.
The guitarists and the musicians who became so popular in the 60s
Uh-huh.
grew up listening to your records. Just as they were rising, you took a break.
Yeah.
Why?
Well, Mary came to me and said, "Look, we can live comfortably the rest of our life, and we have children, and playing on the road and playing for thousands and thousands of people at performance, traveling, living out of a suitcase, it's a tough life." And so we just picked a day, and I just said to the public, we're retiring. I retire, and while I'm in retirement, I'm restless because I was just born with all these things yet to do that haven't been done.
Mary Ford and Les Paul divorced in 1963. Les went on to invent and patent various pickups and electronic devices. He returned to music in 1977 when he made a Grammy-winning record with Chet Atkins. By the mid-1980s, Paul began playing weekly at Fat Tuesdays, a Manhattan jazz club. In recent years, he moved his weekly gig to the Iridium in Manhattan.
So I don't hear you guys, but I know you're there because I turn around and look. I just love to play. And so I said, you know what? I'm going to take it where I can find a little joint where no one pays any attention to me anyway. So if I miss a note or things aren't so good, no one's going to pick on me because I'm nobody.
So here we are on a Monday night at the Iridium on Broadway.
And I'm nobody, yeah, that's right.
You're a guitar,
Yeah,
and you're a sound.
yeah. Thank God. When you're my age, you know that the end is in sight. How do you handle it? You live for the moment. The past is gone, and the future isn't here yet, and you ain't going to change it no matter what you think. And so the most obvious thing to do is right now.
Les Paul, ladies and gentlemen.